What is this thing? I mean, look at it. It's practically begging to die. But looks can be deceiving, and I know for a fact this card, which is the HD 6950, has a lot of life left in it. Released back in 2010 as part of AMD HD 6000 series, this card was one of the fastest of the lineup and offered nothing less than top-notch performance. Actually, that's nothing short of a white lie. Back at this time period, Nvidia was dominating the high-end graphics card scene, and their GTX 580 destroyed this card. In fact, even their lower-tiered 570 did outpace the 6950, which was only 1 or 2 steps below AMD's flagship model. To be fair, AMD did price its products accordingly, but they ended up mainly competing in the mid to low-tier market, with offerings like this not holding up as well. Today, I plan on overclocking this card to get the best possible performance, but before that I'm gonna clean it up, or at least what's left of it. I bought this card used and I don't know where the shroud went, and I don't know how well it's gonna run, but we'll find out.
As I take this card apart, here's some information about it. Upon its release back in 2010, this 6950 would have set you back about $300, but for now can be found for about $30 to $40 on the used market. And for the price, nowadays you actually get a decent amount of performance. Based on the Terascale 3 architecture, this card comes with a whole 2 GB of GDDR5 VRAM clocked at 1250 MHz. That's actually more than the aforementioned GTX 580 had, and was generally a lot to have back in the day. It also comes with 1408 shading units, 88 texture mapping units, 32 render output units, 22 compute units, and a core clock of 800 MHz. But most importantly, it has native support for DirectX 11, which means we can run most modern games on it.
As you saw, I just took apart the card, cleaned it out, and threw on some new thermal paste. It wasn't as disgusting as I expected, so that's good, but after closer inspection, I've grown wary of this cooler. Because there isn't a shroud to direct airflow, the fan is just going to be throwing air around, not really hitting the heatsink at all. And because this card is capable of pulling up to 200 watts, we'll be running into some thermal issues fairly quickly. This massive card barely even fits in the case. I had to unplug one of the SATA cables, but without further ado, let's turn on the dedicated graphics card power supply and see what this thing can do.
I first tried using the Tech Power Up GPU tool, which conveniently had a feature that finds the card's max stable memory and core overclock. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to work, so I ended up settling with Afterburner's unambitious sliders. It limited me to an overclock of 40 and 125 MHz on the GPU core and memory. But either way, that's where the final decline of this card began.
It's fucking hot, Jesus.
Now, because the card died, I wasn't able to play many games on it, but the ones I was able to play didn't disappoint. In CSGO with low settings and 1080p, the 6950 spat out anywhere between 100 to 130 frames per second. That's better than my laptop with a 940MX, so with this card, you could easily build a system that outperforms it at a fraction of the cost. But if you do, just make sure you get a card that's in good condition, and not one like mine. After that was Far Cry 4. I chose this game because Far Cry 6 sucked and there wasn't enough room to install Far Cry 5. But it's still plenty demanding, and I recall it thoroughly exercising my old 970. Regardless, in 1080p with medium settings, the 6950 got an average frame rate of 52 FPS. You could easily play through the whole game with that type of performance, and if you're new to the series, start with Far Cry 3 or 4. The rest are pretty eh. Following that was Beamng.Drive. In 1080p with the low settings, the system got a healthy frame rate of 52 FPS. I did notice that the CPU usage occasionally exceeded the GPU usage, possibly creating a bottleneck, but as a whole, I don't think it made much of a difference. Also, if anyone's going to be using this card in 2022, they're likely not going to be pairing it with a modern CPU. So the 4130 is a good fit, just something to keep in mind. Next up was Fortnite, which got an average frame rate of 59 FPS. I ran this game in 1080p with low settings, but used the performance renderer instead of DirectX 11. I don't know how they differ from each other, but the game didn't stutter, freeze, or crash, so I'd say it did pretty well. Honestly, if all you're gonna do is play Fortnite, this card will be more than enough for you. The last game I tested was 2015's Dirt Rally. Despite being a AAA title released 5 years after this card, it ran very well. I played it in 1080p with medium settings, and after a few minutes of gameplay, it got an average frame rate of 80 FPS. My driving was atrocious, and I could barely stay on the road, but you know what didn't crash? The graphics card. Best performing game out of any.
Unfortunately, this card's story ends here. I tried launching GTA 5, to which it made it halfway through a loading screen and then crashed. Ever since then, it's not been recognized by the system, it doesn't display any video, and it's as good as dead. So yeah, that's it for this old beast. Leave an F in the comments to pay respect. Despite everything, it's still a pretty capable graphics card. I mean, it did do well in a lot of esports titles. Now, it's not going to be running Cyberpunk 2077 or the latest Ghost Recon games, probably even playably, but it can get the job done, for the most part. Honestly, it's not really that bad of a struggle graphics card. If you have a budget of under $100, this would be a valid option to consider. Its performance is about on par with the 750 Ti, but that card generally runs for about $10 to $20 more. Honestly, I'd rather have the 750 Ti due to this thing being kind of a power hazard at 200 watts, but you know what? If this is all you have to work with, it should last you for at least a little bit longer, at least in esports titles.
Anyways, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider leaving a like or subscribing because it genuinely helps me out. If you want to join the community, there's a link in the description to the official Beamng.Drive Discord server, along with a few donation methods that directly support the channel. If you have any questions or related comments, then leave them below and I'll be sure to respond to it. That's about it. Have a great day. Bye.